Hey, what's up everybody? How to Tech here. Gonna bring you a disassembly of this Nexus 6P. It is supposed to be pretty difficult to disassemble, so we're gonna use a wide variety of tools here. We're gonna use this razor blade, a flat-sided razor blade. We have a couple pieces of cut up aluminum can here to help us take off the camera visor. I'm hoping that'll work. We have a playing card. This will also help us remove the visor, hopefully. A couple of guitar picks. We have a couple of pry tools here, or a pry tool, a nylon spudger, and then a double O Phillips screwdriver is what we'll be using to take the screws out once we get underneath this. So we also will need to do a couple of preparatory steps, or actually one more thing we'll need is a heat gun, of course. This will help us remove the camera visor and the lower portion that's hiding the screws that's holding this beast together. So we'll use this to heat the visor and the bottom plastic piece up. Let's go ahead and eject the SIM card slot here and get that removed before we forget and have a hard time getting the phone disassembled. We also want to make sure that we power the device off. Now we can go ahead and get started. So the first thing we're going to do is basically just heat the crap out of this camera visor, and I'm hoping that we can get it nice and warm to make it really easy to remove. Now normally I don't like to edit my videos a lot, but this one you'll see a little bit of jumping around as I had to try different tools to get things to work. I'm going to show you what worked for me. So we're going to get this visor really hot to the point where it's scalding, burns your finger. The reason we're doing that is it's going to make this portion of the assembly much easier. We're going to take our razor blade, put it underneath the visor right here on the lip. Let's see if it kind of pulled up for us. Let's see if we can get our piece of can under there. There we go. Now we can take our aluminum can and slide it underneath. I'm going to go ahead and continue to warm it up. Now the reason why I'm using this aluminum can is it's so thin that we can kind of push it around the edge of the visor and it won't shatter the visor, and that's the goal here. So we're going to take another piece and slide it in and basically just work our way down. We're just going to use a cutting motion here and slide it down the side of the visor. And the benefit of doing it this way also is that you won't be damaging your phone if you have the graphite or the gray one like I do. We don't want to nick up the edges of this. I like to make sure my phones look like they've never been disassembled before. So that's a way to do this. Now this will make it much easier to get removed. Now I did try first just using the aluminum can without the razor blade, and that did not work. So I heated it up for quite some time. I actually did it twice basically. So I heated it up once until I couldn't touch it. It was so hot. And then I tried the pop can and that didn't work. And I heated it up again to where it was so hot that I couldn't touch it. And then I used a razor blade, and that's what worked for us. So I'm just going to heat it up as we go down the side. And the important thing here is that when you feel resistance, that you get it warm again, because you don't want to put any pressure on this glass. Let's say I just burned myself, and it's still really warm. Now right here, as you move towards the camera, you want to be careful that you don't nick the camera or get any gook or gunk underneath the lens there. So once we get it right to the edge, we can go ahead and pop it forward, and that will release the camera visor for us. So I think this method makes it super duper easy. I didn't damage anything when heating it up either. So this is my suggested method. Now you can see we have two screws up here, one under litmus paper on the right and one under litmus paper on the left. Before we remove those, we're actually going to go ahead and pop off the bottom portion of the phone here. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to get this bottom portion nice and warm as well. Now I've also noticed when I got this really warm, I noticed some discoloration on the plastic. So I warmed it up maybe a little bit too much. So you just want to be careful with that. And I'll show you what I mean. Parts of it turned a little bit gray rather than the kind of the graphite matching color that we have here on the back of the phone. Now we're going to basically use the exact same method here. Now I tried a few different tools. I tried just a plastic tool. I tried a piece of pop can, but I ended up having to use the razor, and I didn't damage it at all. So I think the small flat razor is the way to go. So when I tilt the phone, you'll see a spot where it kind of looks a little bit more gray, and that is where, right there, you can see the two spaces now. So be careful when you're heating up the back. You don't want to get it extremely hot. Now the reason why I couldn't get this piece of pop can underneath it is that it basically dips, or it kind of has a lip in. It's a little bit deeper in there than I thought it was going to be. It's not beveled at all, so it's straight down. So you'd have to get something really underneath it to get in there. And I didn't want to damage it. I want it to look nice and new once I put it back together. Now the reason why I'm showing you this portion is this is basically the exact same thing that I went through with the camera visor. I was going to use a playing card on the camera visor, but it was too thick. I couldn't even get it in there. The tolerances on this phone are pretty crazy. So here we go. We'll use our razor tool here. We're going to kind of dip it in. And I'm not being extremely forceful with it. So working it, pulling it up, just wiggle it back and forth. And I'm not sliding this around along the phone because I don't want to damage the aluminum on the phone. So still, it just didn't want to let me in, so I'm going to try one more time here with the razor blade. Oh, actually I got it with the pop can, it looks like. Or maybe not. Looks like we're going to have to go back to the razor blade here as well. So really probably disassembling just this back portion. I spent a solid 20 minutes trying to figure it out. I didn't want to waste and make this video 45 minutes long. So I thought I'd just show you kind of the bits and pieces of what I did and what didn't work for me so you don't waste your time doing the same thing. So now we have the razor blade in there far enough where I can dip this playing card in there hopefully. There we go. That'll get us started. I'm going to push it in a little bit further and turn it sideways. There we go. Now we can just use this and work our way around. And we don't have to be careful here. This plastic piece won't shatter, so you can give it a little bit more forcefulness to get it off. We'll just use this to go around the phone here. Perfect, and that will reveal the 4 screws underneath, 2 of which are under litmus paper as well. So really remember that this will be voiding your warranty, so if you're not into that, don't do this repair. Alright, so we have a total of 6 screws to remove. We have 2 at the top of the phone, and then 4 at the bottom. And they're all Phillips screws, and I believe they're all exactly the same length. So nothing crazy like an iPhone where all screws are different lengths and all that stuff, so you don't have to keep them in meticulous order, but I always keep every screw I take out of the phone and I put it back in the exact same place that it went. So I suggest that you do the same thing. I draw a diagram of the phone on a piece of paper. I actually have a magnetic dry erase pamphlet. And that will allow me to remember exactly where all the screws go. I would suggest you do something similar. Alright, the 2 top screws are out. Let's go ahead and pull out the 4 screws on the bottom of the phone. You don't have to remove the litmus paper off of it. You can just push your screwdriver straight on top and unscrew it that way as well. Alright, 2 more screws to go. Our last one. Now we can go ahead and try to remove the display off. Now I tried for a while with a suction cup on this as well. What I ended up using is this razor blade again. If you have an eye slack, you can use that. But most people don't have that. And if you're watching a do-it-yourself repair, you're probably not going to go out and spend $30 on a one-time use tool. So I'm going to take my scalpel, if you will, and we're going to dip it into between the aluminum case and the plastic on the back of the phone. And once you push it in, it'll go ahead and pop up, and you can put a pick in there to help you keep it open. Then we're going to take our pick and we're going to kind of run it around the sides of the phone. Use our pry tool here and work our way down. There's clips in it, just like, I don't know if you ever opened an HTC phone and the M7, M8 versions, they have clips down the side. This is exactly the same thing. In fact, this phone reminds me a lot of opening an HTC phone. Now we can go ahead and pry it. Now you want to be slightly careful when you pry it. I'm not prying extremely hard, and it was really difficult to actually pry off. But you can use your spudger to work your way down the sides and just pull up the click. So you can see right here, these snaps are where it holds everything in. You also want to be really careful on this side of the phone where the power button, volume button is at. You don't want to damage those when disassembling your device. So you can see here on the back of the phone, it has the exact same slots into it as well. So really this is just a aluminum back housing. Now with that done, we can see we have all the internal components of the phone. We have one long ribbon cable that runs over the battery, connecting the daughter board to the logic board. One awesome thing about this phone is it does have a separate charge port. So that means if you do damage your charge port, you can replace that assembly and not have to buy a brand new phone, which is pretty awesome, although getting into the phone might be slightly difficult. Here's your power button, volume button that I was talking about, so be careful if you're going to slide your tool down the side of the phone to release the back. We have our touch button, our fingerprint scanner, which is actually square, which is kind of funny. It looks like the exact same one that was on the other Huawei phone they just came out with. So it looks like they just repurposed it. We're going to unscrew the one screw that's holding this bracket in over the ribbon cables here, and it kind of has a hinge that dips underneath the touch button. If you basically just pull forward, it'll pop off for you. You can kind of lift up. A little tiny bit of adhesive on the back side of it. We'll go ahead and do the other side, which is holding down the ribbon cable that runs underneath the battery. And there are two screws here. Alright, now with that done, we can go ahead and pull up this bracket, which has the exact same adhesive underneath it. Be a little bit tricky to pop off. There we go. Alright, now we can go ahead and basically undo all of the ribbon cable connections. We're going to undo the top ones here real fast, and we'll take this ribbon cable off the bottom and remove it off the phone. These just basically snap on like a button on a pair of jeans. You'd have to twist your little spudger underneath it, and it'll pop right up. And don't be too forceful with them. The next one we're going to pull up is the battery connection. And the one next to that is the touch sensor. This is for the display cable. So now with all the ribbon cables removed, what we can go ahead and do is work on the bottom portion of the phone. We have a screw right here that's holding in the forward-facing speaker here. The screwdriver is not that magnetic, apparently. We also need to remove this ribbon cable. This little wire connection. You want to be slightly careful with these. These can snap pretty easily. So just kind of pull it back. And oh, there's a screw underneath it as well. And it looks like this is all kind of clipped in. There's a clip right here at the front portion that's holding everything in. We need to undo that screw here to remove the charge port board. Alright, now we can go ahead and pop that up. Now, if we want to remove the loudspeaker, we do have a adhered on connection here we'll have to get to pull up. And we can just use our tool underneath it to help us get under the cable itself. We don't want to tear it, so just be gentle as you're pushing underneath it. And once you get it up most of the way, you can actually just kind of pull the cable up, as long as you hold it with relative ease. I'm going to go ahead and set that aside. Alright, now what we can do is, if you need to remove your vibration module and transfer it to your new display, you can do that. Just use a pin to pop that out. Use a SIM card removal tool or maybe a razor blade. And just make sure you don't damage the ribbon cable on that as well. It has these little two pins that it sits on so you can line it up again on your new display. Alright, so let's go ahead and try to take this ribbon cable off the top here. Oh, it's pulled right off for us. Alright, so we can see that we have our battery adhered on. We're going to try to lift this battery off of the phone here now. And I would suggest using a light flat plastic tool. This is just an old SIM card tool piece, like a gift card or a credit card will help you out here. This thing is really adhered in there. It doesn't have that much adhesive underneath it, but man, it is stuck in there. I'm really trying not to heat the batteries up either. It's kind of dangerous to use a metal tool like this one I'm using now. So if you're going to use it, make sure it's not pointy. So I'm using the flat side. And you can see that the battery is just going to start to bend a little bit. So I'm being a little cautious about trying to remove it with this tool. So maybe just something nice and flat and wide. And once we get the battery out, we can show you exactly where the adhesive is at. So just working my way down, trying to get a little bit of leverage underneath it. We'll go back to our SIM card tool here. I'd like to take this moment to go ahead and thank T-Mobile for sending me this SIM card plastic gift card type material. It comes in handy when working on phones. So it's being pretty tricky. So you can see the battery starting to bend right here. So I'm just going to push it flat underneath it as much as I possibly can and work down here at the corner. The corners are usually the weak spots where you can get some leverage going. So you can see there we go. We got our card started to slide underneath it that direction there. Now we're just going to go ahead and basically move it up a little bit and do the same thing over and over and over again. So put it in on the side and then kind of push it down and work your way down the back of the device here. Alright, we're making a little bit of progress here. Now there's a cable that runs underneath this, which is why I'm also being a little bit cautious. There we go. So I'm all the way through the first side of the adhesive. So now I can go ahead and try to basically pull backwards on the battery and pull it out. Let's see if we can get a peek underneath it here. You can see the cable still intact, so no stress there. Now the battery's just bending. Normally you can pull these batteries out once it's like this. This one, it looks like we're going to have to use our piece of plastic tool here to go back underneath the battery again. The reason why I'm not starting on this side, and your battery may be different, if you can start on this side it might be easier, but there's just no slot, so there's no available room to slide the card in underneath. So we're going to go over the ribbon cable underneath the battery and then start working our way in at this corner down here on the side. There's a little bit less adhesive on this side, it feels like. Just wiggle it back and forth and make progress. Perfect, there we go. So it looks like the adhesive is going to come up with the battery here. And there you go. You can see the adhesive, two portions. This bottom right side had less, and the left side definitely had a lot more. I'm just going to flatten the battery back out. Perfect. So now there's a display cable you can see, and be careful of this opening here for probably where they soldered on the digitizer onto the display. Alright, so looking at it, we're going to go ahead and work on removing the logic board up here at the top now. And to do that, we're going to try to undo a few more ribbon cables. See up here at the top, for the front-facing camera, it also has a bracket covering the ribbon cables. So we're going to go ahead and remove the bracket that's holding down the front-facing camera and the 3.5mm headphone jack. Now you can see the bracket also has the wired cable here routed through it. So we'll need to pop that up here real quick. And pull that back. And that'll go ahead and allow us to remove that bracket. There we go. Alright, now we can undo the two ribbon cables here that are holding these two devices in. pull the front-facing camera out. And you can go ahead and remove the 3.5mm headphone jack. It actually holds the logic board in a little bit. I didn't remove it in the video, but you can move it. There is 2 brackets that are holding this down, as well as an additional screw here on this side. So we're going to pop the screw off here real fast. And you can see that there's this bracket hinge here that's kind of holding everything in and just snaps it in place. So we're just going to pry here. That'll let us go ahead and remove it. And we can pull the logic board out. So on the back of it, this pink stuff, that is thermal paste. Don't eat it. It is not candy. We got our front-facing or rear-facing camera. So if you need to replace that, you can just pop the cable off here and pull the camera out. Also on the side here, you can see, and make sure you don't put this face down on top of the thermal paste. Now if you need to remove the earpiece speaker, you can definitely do that. And then the touch ID, basically the same ribbon cable, it just pops off, and then it's just double-sided adhered onto the back of this chip connection here. Also, if you're looking to replace your power button, volume buttons, it is just a ribbon cable that runs down the side of the phone here. You do have to remove the logic board to get to the connection underneath it, which is kind of a pain, but it is replaceable if you can get that far. Now really, that's this assembly of the Nexus 6P. If you found this video helpful, hit that like button. If you have any questions, throw them down in the comments. I do my best to get to them. Subscribe for future repair videos. And as always, thanks for watching. Peace.